Marcus Hale had never liked the hours between midnight and dawn. The city thinned to a strange quiet, leaving only the restless and the reckless. But it was the only time he could drive without losing his day job. After a drunk passenger grabbed at his wallet the week before, he'd finally bought a small dash microphone with a blinking red light. It was meant to scare trouble off and record anything serious, just in case. That night, a storm swelled over the city like a bruise. The radio warned of rolling blackouts, and the air smelled of metal and ozone. Marcus flicked the mic switch, the tiny LED glowing like an eye. The car filled with the low hiss of static as he queued up the first ride. Lena Ortiz slid into the back seat near 1 a.m., a college student soaked to the knees, earbuds dangling. She barely looked up from her phone as he pulled into traffic. Rain sheeted across the windshield, each wiper swipe a heartbeat. "Rough night," Marcus said, mostly to break the silence. "Yeah," she murmured. Then, without warning, her voice deepened, slow and deliberate. "I took the gold watch from the antique shop on 8th. It's hidden behind the blue brick in my dorm room wall. I never meant to, but I can't stop thinking about it." Marcus glanced at her in the rear view. She was staring out the window, brows knit as if she hadn't spoken. "Excuse me?" he asked. She blinked. "What?" He just said, "I didn't say anything." The storm crackled in his earbuds, a low rumble that prickled his skin. He tapped the mic to be sure it was on. The red light pulsed steadily. When he dropped her off, she hurried through the rain without another word. Marcus replayed the audio before the next ride. Her confession came through clear, every detail of the theft. Unsure what to do, he forwarded the file to Officer Jenna Park, the neighborhood cop who had once given him her card after a fender bender. "Just in case something weird happens," she'd said back then. He half expected her to laugh when he called, but she listened carefully and promised to check it out. 2 nights later, she called back. "We found the watch," she said, exactly where she said. "Marcus, how did you get her to talk?" "I didn't. She swears she never said it." A pause. "Well, it's evidence now. Just keep driving like normal. If anything else happens, record it." The city felt different after that, as if the storm had left an invisible charge in the air. Marcus kept the mic running on every ride. Most passengers were ordinary, tired office workers, late-shift nurses. Then, a week later, a man with a limp and a baseball cap climbed in. He smelled of old smoke and rain-damp wool. Halfway across town, he began to mutter. "Should have dumped the gun where he said. But we buried it behind the laundromat dumpster years back. Never thought they'd look there." Marcus's knuckles tightened on the wheel, sir. The man startled awake or seemed to. "Yeah, we almost there." Do you know where you're headed?" "Yeah, the corner of West and Grant." Marcus dropped him off and immediately called Jenna. "Bye." Morning, the police had retrieved a rusted revolver from behind the laundromat, wrapped in a rotting towel. That afternoon, Marcus received a text from an unknown number. "Stop recording." He stared at the screen until the letters blurred. He hadn't told anyone about the mic beyond Jenna. That evening he debated leaving the mic off, but habit won. A suited businessman slid into the back seat near midnight, face smooth and unreadable. He gave an address in the hills and sat silently as the rain returned in soft needling streaks. Halfway there, the car lights flickered. The man's reflection in the rear view seemed to lean forward, though he hadn't moved. His voice came low and sure. "The body is under Pier 42. Paper signed. Nobody will ever know." Marcus's stomach dropped. He kept driving, heart pounding, until the man tapped his shoulder lightly and said in an ordinary tone, "Next left, please." When Marcus looked again, the man's eyes were calm, polite, as if nothing had happened. After the drop-off, he parked beneath a flickering street lamp and replayed the audio. The confession was crystal clear. A murder, a body, a hidden contract. As he listened, the mic's red light pulsed faster, and a soft hiss filled the car, like someone breathing right behind him. Marcus sat frozen in the driver's seat, the soft hiss in his headset growing louder until it felt like someone was whispering in his ear. He ripped the cord out, but the sound continued, a faint exhale that seemed to come from the very air. His phone vibrated again. A new text glowed on the screen. "Stop. Before you disappear like the others." The words chilled him. He scanned the empty street, the wet pavement gleaming under a flickering lamp. No one. Only the echo of rain. By the time Marcus reached his apartment, dawn was smudging the horizon. He barely slept. When he finally drifted off, he dreamed of a dark pier and the sound of a body sliding into water. He woke slick with sweat, heart hammering, as if someone had been standing over him. Later that day, he met Officer Jenna Park at a diner, the microphone and recordings clutched in a plastic bag. 3 different passengers, he said, voice hoarse. 3 confessions. And I didn't prompt a single one. Jenna listened through the files, her face tightening. These details aren't public, she said. Not the revolver, not the pier. This isn't coincidence. What is it then? Some kind of tech trick? Maybe they're playing me. She shook her head. I don't know. But we checked Pier 42 this morning. We found human remains. Marcus's coffee turned to ash in his mouth. Jenna leaned closer, lowering her voice. Keep driving tonight. If something happens, call me right away. Don't confront anyone. Don't draw attention. He wanted to refuse, to walk away and forget the whole thing, but something deeper, something like duty, kept him tethered. I'll keep it on, he said. The storm returned that evening, clouds low and bruised. Marcus's first passenger was a young man in a leather jacket who tapped nervously at his phone. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before the man's voice slipped into a flat monotone. I shouldn't have locked the fire exit. They burned. I only wanted the insurance. Marcus's grip tightened until his knuckles whitened. Sir? The man blinked, startled. Yeah, almost there. Marcus nodded, throat dry. Shh. As soon as the door shut behind the passenger, he called Jenna. She promised to check for any matching unsolved fires. Minutes later, his phone buzzed with another unknown text. Stop recording or you'll burn too. Marcus's chest constricted. He turned off the mic. Instantly, the air in the car felt heavier, the storm louder. For a moment, he thought he heard breathing behind him again. He flicked the mic back on. The red light steadied. Around midnight, a final ride request pinged. Pickup, an address he didn't recognize. The street was nearly deserted when he arrived, a narrow lane shadowed by tall warehouses. A lone figure stepped from the darkness and slid into the back seat. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. The passenger's face was obscured by a hood. Where to? Marcus asked. The figure gave a slow smile. Just drive. Marcus hesitated, but the app showed the fare confirmed. He eased into the wet street. After a few blocks, the passenger spoke not in a normal voice, but in a layered echo, like several people speaking at once. You keep listening. You keep pulling the memories. But do you know whose they are? Marcus's scalp prickled. Who are you? You're carrying them? Every voice, every crime. They belong to the storm, and now to you. Marcus's heart pounded. What do you want from me? To remember, the voice said. To tell. To finish what we could not. Lightning split the sky. For an instant the cabin flooded with white light, and Marcus saw not one passenger, but many. Flickers of faces, eyes hollow, mouths moving. When darkness returned, the hooded figure was gone. The car coasted to a stop in the empty street. The back seat was dry, untouched. Marcus sat trembling, the mic's red light flashing faster and faster until it steadied into a solid glow. From the speakers came a single voice, calm and distant. Now you know our names. Don't let them be forgotten. The light faded, leaving only the sound of the rain. Hours later, when Marcus finally checked his phone, the Rideshare app was blank. No record of the last trip, no fare, no passenger profile, but a new file waited in his audio folder. He pressed play. It wasn't a confession. It was a list of names, one after another, voices overlapping and a chorus of the lost. He recognized some from the news missing persons, cold cases, but others were strangers. The recording ended with a single directive whispered in that layered voice. Tell them. Marcus stared through the windshield as dawn crept over the skyline. He knew he would drive again the next night. Not because he wanted to, but because the storm and the dead it carried had found their messenger. Eli Navarro lived by the map on his phone. Every night, he ferried strangers through the sleeping city, chasing surge fares and the slow climb of his tuition fund. Maps were how he paid rent, how he measured time. But tonight, the blue dot pulsed like a heartbeat and it refused to stop. The shift began like any other. The night rain slicked the streets, and the bay wind carried a metallic chill. He sipped cold coffee and watched the Rideshare app flicker with requests. Outside a gas station, a faded poster of Jasmine Bell fluttered on the pole, missing for 2 years, her shy smile forever 18. Eli knew her name from local podcasts and late-night chatter. Everyone in San Francisco knew it. The case had gone cold, but her eyes still looked out from every bulletin board. At 2:13 a.m., a high-surge request blinked across his screen. Pick up at a warehouse district near the piers. No name, just rider. We'll meet you curbside. The payout tempted him. He tapped accept. The streets narrowed as he approached, warehouses rising like dark cliffs. A single figure stepped from the shadows, hood up, face hidden. They slid into the back seat without a word. The passenger smelled faintly of salt and damp cardboard. Destination? Eli asked, glancing in the mirror. Just drive, the rider said, voice low. Follow the GPS. The phone screen glowed, drawing a route through alleys Eli barely recognized. Followed, tires hissing on wet asphalt. The passenger said nothing. When they reached a small industrial road, the app chimed, recalculating. The line redrew itself into a tight loop, sending him back toward where they had started. Looks like a glitch, he said. The hooded figure offered no response. He completed the loop. Again the app chimed. Again it sent him back. When they returned to the warehouse curb, the back seat was empty. Eli twisted around, startled. The door was shut tight. No one had opened it. A shiver worked its way up his spine. He checked the rear camera. Nothing but black vinyl and a smear of rain on the window. He tapped End Ride. The app refused, spinning an endless loading circle. On the second pass through the loop, something caught the corner of his eye, a thin sparkle near a drain. He slowed and braked. A bracelet lay half submerged in a puddle, silver charm shaped like a tiny bell. Knew it instantly. Jasmine Bell had worn one in every missing person photo. He picked it up, heart hammering. Cold metal pressed against his palm. He snapped a photo and texted it to Maya, his friend, who never slept before 3. Look what I just found. You know that missing girl? Maya replied almost immediately. No way. That's her bracelet. Call the cops. Eli looked at the phone's map again. The route pulsed brighter, demanding he continue. Against every sensible thought, he drove on. Third loop. The rain thickened to mist. Streetlights flickered as if winking in code. At the alley's midpoint, a lamppost sticker glowed faintly, a crude X drawn in red paint. He pulled over and traced it with a finger. Fresh. His phone vibrated. Another text from Maya. I'm coming. Don't move. The next recalculation came with a soft beep, but the voice felt different. Colder, lower, like someone breathing inside the speaker. Proceed to highlighted route. It didn't sound automated. Eli obeyed, pulse quickening. A narrow service lane curved behind a shuttered seafood plant. Under a metal grate, he spotted a folded slip of paper. Kneeling in the drizzle, he slid it free. Only 2 words, scribbled in hurried ink. Pier 7. Headlights flashed at the end of the lane. The car idled just out of reach, engine low and patient. Eli stood, heart pounding. The lights vanished as quickly as they had appeared. Maya's small hatchback screeched to a stop minutes later. She jumped out, hoodie pulled tight. Show me. He held out the bracelet and note. I think the GPS is guiding me. They huddled in the rain, comparing the bracelet to an old photo on her phone. It matched perfectly. Aya's eyes widened. This isn't random. The Rideshare app finally chimed again. Continue route. The words glowed brighter than before. Eli, Maya whispered, someone's leading you, but who? Before he could answer, a soft thump rattled the windshield. They both startled. A scrap of fabric clung to the wiper, pale and damp. He peeled it free. The faint scent of jasmine perfume drifted upward, impossibly fresh. Behind them, a distant engine revved. The sound echoed through the alleys like a warning. The map pulsed once more, the voice calm and cold. Proceed to highlighted route. Rain slicked the empty street as Eli gripped the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the glowing map. The blue route pulsed like a living thing, stretching from the alley to Pier 7. Maya sat stiff beside him, clutching the silver bracelet as if it might vanish. "You're really going to follow it?" she asked. "I don't think we have a choice," Eli said. "Every time I stop, it—" He eased the car forward. The night smelled of salt and rust, the city's heartbeat muffled by fog. The GPS voice spoke again, slower this time, as if savoring each syllable. "Turn left in 300 feet." They turned onto an unlit service road. Broken warehouses loomed like hulks, their windows black and hollow. The sound of the ocean grew louder, a restless whisper. Half a mile on, the app chimed. "Proceed to destination." Pier 7 jutted into the bay, slick with rain and shadow. The wooden planks creaked beneath their steps as they left the car. Overhead, the lamps flickered in erratic rhythm, casting pale rings of light across the wet boards. "This is where they searched for her," Maya murmured. 2 years ago." Eli scanned the pier. "Then why bring us back?" The bracelet glinted faintly in Maya's hand. "Maybe Jasmine's spirit can't let go." A hollow thud echoed from the far end of the pier. They both flinched. Eli pulled out his phone. The app displayed a single message, beneath. They followed the sound to a rotted trapdoor near the final piling. Eli crouched and pried it open. A rush of brackish air swept up from the darkness below. A rusted ladder descended into the tide-washed underbelly of the pier. "Are you serious?" Maya whispered. He nodded, throat tight. "Stay close." The ladder groaned under their weight. At the bottom, ankle-deep water lapped against their shoes. The air smelled of mildew and metal. The flashlight beam caught something wedged in the slick wall, a torn backpack with a faded charm shaped like a bell. Maya gasped. "That's hers." Eli pulled it free. Inside were damp papers, bus schedules, a half-destroyed phone, and a sealed envelope with Jasmine's name scrawled in shaky ink. He opened it carefully. Inside lay a USB drive and a scrap of paper with a single word, "Play." They exchanged a look. Maya slipped the drive into her pocket. Behind them came the soft crunch of footsteps on wet wood. "Who's there?" Eli called, his voice echoing in the chamber. No answer, only another step, closer. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden beneath a dripping hood. The beam of Eli's flashlight revealed a dark badge clipped to the coat, a Rideshare emblem. "I wouldn't move," the man said, voice low and sharp. "Hand over the drive." Maya stiffened. "Who are you?" The man stepped forward, water rippling around his boots. "Someone who knows when people should stay lost." Eli's mind raced. Did you?" She got curious, the man interrupted. "Followed the wrong trail. Just like you." The map on Eli's phone pulsed brighter, the GPS voice rising. "Urgent now. Run." Eli grabbed Maya's hand and bolted down the flooded corridor. The man's footsteps thundered behind them. The tunnel twisted toward another ladder. They climbed, hearts hammering. Above, a trapdoor burst open into a deserted fish processing shed. He stumbled inside, slamming the door. The phone chimed again. "Emergency services contacted. Stay where you are." Maya panted, clutching the bracelet. "Your phone. I called the cops." "I didn't touch it," Eli said, shaking. Distant sirens wailed across the bay. The hooded man's footsteps faded as he fled the other direction. A moment later, the shed door rattled violently, then fell silent. By the time 2 officers arrived, the pier was empty. Eli handed over the backpack, the bracelet, and the USB drive. The officers exchanged glances when they saw Jasmine's name. Back at the precinct, the drive revealed encrypted document shipping logs and payment records, tying several dockside companies to a human trafficking ring. Among the listed names was a former rideshare dispatcher who had vanished months after Jasmine. "It's enough to reopen the case," one detective said, eyes wide. Outside, the dawn broke pale and cold. Maya leaned against the car, the bracelet warm in her palm, despite the chill. "You think it was her?" she asked softly. Ale looked at the silent phone. The map had returned to its normal grid, the pulsing route gone. "I think she let us," he said. She wasn't finished. A sudden breeze swept across the pier, carrying a faint sound light, footsteps receding into the morning fog, as if someone, at last, was walking home. Darren liked the no-contact runs because they asked less of him. No small talk. No awkward exchanges. The app pinged, the trunk popped, he loaded a box and drove. Cut minutes off his nights and left his hands cleaner for the next morning. Questions from Rosa. Did you bring the cereal? And for the homework he helped her with at the kitchen table. Being dependable felt like payment enough. It was after midnight when the request popped up. A high fare from an apartment complex across town. The label read nitrogen monoxide. The driver instructions: trunk pickup, curbside drop. Quick job, more than enough to cover a week's worth of gas. He pulled into a lot where half the streetlights blinked in tired staccato, and the building corridors smelled faintly of bleach and old sweat. The box was heavier than it looked. Plain brown, taped twice. Darren nearly tossed it into the trunk when a single folded sheet slipped free and fluttered against the bumper like a white flag. He frowned and unfolded it. The handwriting was tight. The letters tipped with an urgent tremor. If found, call Officer Mia Reyes for 15XXXXXX Tamika Owens, locker 8/12, Luca not to be trusted. There was a sequence beneath, a string of numbers that looked like a code more than coordinates. Darren blinked. He thumbed through recent deliveries until the building's package concierge came downstairs and waved. He slid the box in and left, but the note pressed against him, all the way back to his car. Tamika Owens. The name stuck somewhere in his memory. Searched while he drove, local feed, community posts, a cropped photo on a missing persons board, Tamika 23 hit and run 3 weeks prior. A memorial candle photo with too many comments, dead. Why would a dead girl put a note in a box? He kept the folded paper in his jacket like a lucky coin and drove home slower than usual. Rosa was asleep when he creaked the door open, the apartment smelling of cereal bowls and the soft heat of the space heater. He sat at the kitchen table with the note flat beneath his palm and tried to find the sense of it. Locker 8/12. Luca not to be trusted. Officer Mia Reyes. In the morning, he called the number. A voice answered, direct, clipped. This is Officer Reyes. How can I help? Darren read the note aloud. There was a pause long enough for the kettle to boil. Stay where you are, she said finally. Bring what you've got. Don't mention this to anyone else. We'll handle it. She met him in the parking lot of the precinct with an easy, professional calm that made him feel like they were handling a form, not a ghost. No contact accounts get abused, she said, accepting the box and the paper. We'll do a trace on the booking. Someone's using the app to move stolen goods. We want to know who. Back home? After dropping off the paperwork, he let himself unclench. He told Rosa a soft pared-down version. Daddy took a box to the police. She raised one eye and went back to her cartoons. He felt useful, a small thing like a stitch in the dark. That night, Rosa slept with her knees drawn to her chest and a stuffed animal tucked under her chin. Darren set the box in the closet to keep it out of sight. He checked the phone for a message from Mia and saw a line of missed calls he'd missed while he'd been dozing in the chair. Text glowed. Meet me at the station tomorrow. Don't drive tonight, Darren. He should have listened. He should have done what Mia said. He woke to the sound of his neighbor's dog, barking a frantic single note. Streetlight scars cut the blinds. Papers were slashed from the mailbox and scattered. On the apartment floor, his coffee cup lay smashed, and the closet door stood open. The box was still there, empty. The note was gone. He found a single footprint on the welcome mat, smear of dirt across the doorframe. On the kitchen table where he had left his phone, someone had placed a card with a hand-printed message, "Stop digging." Darren's hand shook as he dialed Mia's number, again and again until she answered. Her voice went still when he described the scene. Did you touch anything? She asked. No, I called you. He pictured Rosa sleeping through it all. We'll send a unit. Do not go back in. If anyone returns, do not confront them. A neighbor across the hall banged on Darren's door a few minutes later with his phone in hand. I grabbed CCTV footage off my camera, the man said, breathless. You don't want to see this. They watched the grainy clip together, a dark SUV rolling past at 2:15 a.m., headlights dim, idling opposite the complex. The camera zoomed, and 2 silhouettes slipped from the vehicle, quick and practiced. One approached Darren's door, fumbled with the lock, then turned and motioned the other over. They moved like someone who had done the same route every night. One of them glanced directly at the lens, and then at the stairs where Rosa's light was still on. The footage cut. Mia's face on the phone was a thin line. "We'll use this. Please stay with a neighbor tonight. If Lucas' crew is behind this, they'll be careful. They move to intimidate." Darren felt both small and exposed. Something in him tightened in the way people's fists do when they hold grief. He thought of the note's words, Luca not to be trusted, and of Tamika, who might have shoved this single instruction into a box before she died. He couldn't leave the question alone. That evening, while Mia worked warrants and the station lights buzzed, when he crouched at door 8/12 and pressed his ear to the seam, a loose bolt fell from somewhere above and pinged on the concrete, an accidental, tiny knock. The sound opened something inside him, not a voice, but a permission. He stuck his hand between the door and frame and found a brass key taped where no one would think to look. As he stood, unease thudded in his chest. Across the lot, the black SUV rolled slowly into view and stopped. The engine idled. Figure stepped out and watched him tighten the key between his fingers, as if recognizing it or recognizing the man who found it. The SUV's headlights left the world in a moment, and then it melted back into the dark. Darren slid the key into his pocket. He walked to his car as a single raindrop fell from the sky, a cold, exact punctuation. He could hear Mia's voice in his head, "Do not confront them." He started the engine and drove back home, keys warm against his ribs, knowing the next move would have to be careful, and that whatever had put that paper in the box had plans that reached beyond him. Darren drove the key to the precinct and handed it to Officer Mia like an offering. She took it without ceremony, slipping it into an evidence bag, then taped the bag closed and looked at him with a level he liked and feared. "You did the right thing bringing this to us," she said. "Now we do ours." They moved on a provisional warrant that afternoon. Darren rode with Mia to the storage facility, eyes peeled for the black SUV. The lot smelled of motor oil and old cardboard. The corrugated doors looked like teeth in a frown. Mia's officers spread out, uniforms snug and quiet. Darren stayed near the perimeter, heart thudding in his throat like a nervous animal. Mia fitted the key into the lock as if she'd done it 100 times before. The bolt turned with a soft, ancient protest. Inside the unit, under a thin film of dust, were a dozen identical boxes, plain brown, taped twice, each with a faint smudge of shipping ink. Someone had scrubbed off obvious marks. The boxes were heavy with the way guilt is heavy, like something too dense to lift easily. They pried one open. Inside, velvet pouches and necklaces slipped from tissue like pale fish. A small stack of receipts linked to a local pawn shop. Another box yielded a tangle of phones, discarded models, with SIM slots empty. Tucked beneath crumpled clothes was a folded photograph. Tamika, laughing, the edges bitten by water damage. At the bottom of the crate, beneath a coil of rope, lay a battered journal with handwriting that matched the note Darren had found. Mia read a line aloud. "If I don't make it, tell them Luca took more than money." The evidence piled and spoke in a language Darren understood. Patterns, transactions, code names. Mia used the phone numbers and shipping stamps to trace a chain. The pawnbroker's ledgers pointed toward a shell company Corvus Logistics used to launder goods. One of the courier accounts tied back to a driver with ties to a man Darren had heard whispered about in the neighborhood, Luca Santoro. Mia's jaw tightened. "He's a logistics guy," she said. "Plays both sides, contracts by day, fences by night. If he's behind this, Tamika might have stumbled on something she shouldn't have." They set a trap that night. Under Mia's direction, officers staged a monitored no-contact pickup at a known Drop Corvus Logistics dummy address. Darren volunteered to sit in his car near Bonata's bait, but because he wanted to be there if Tamika's name turned up again. Maya, a civilian volunteer from the neighborhood watch, recorded from a safe distance on her phone. When a nondescript van eased into the lot, engines muffled and patient, Mia gave a hand signal. Officers closed in. A young courier, eyes darting, hopped out and headed to the trunk. He was cuffed without a sound. Inside the van, officers found more Corvus boxers, a ledger with names, and a small stack of cash and envelopes stamped with the lion's crest Corvus's mark. The courier started talking as soon as Mia sat with him, half confession, half protection, naming drop points and buyers, and muttering about orders from above and no questions. They arrested 3 mid-level operatives, that night people whose faces matched other CCTV clips Darren had seen, and brought the van and boxes back to the station. Darren watched the footage loop. A courier taking a box, The same black SUV hovering on the street, a passenger profile with an offshore payment node, everything lined up like clean teeth. But the net only closed on the small fish. Luca didn't show his face. Someone at the top had been careful. Corporate layers and shell accounts fudged the money trail. Mia frowned as she scanned the ledger. Names blurred into corporate entities. "He's good at covering," she said. "But we got enough to keep people talking. Not everything ends in a single night." After the bust, Darren's apartment still felt vulnerable. Someone had already rifled through it once. He slept with a baseball bat by the door, eyes open until the dawn smeared gray across the windows. Rosa asked no questions about risks at breakfast. Kids seemed to sense when adults needed softness, and in the small distance between school drop-off and work, Darren felt both proud and raw. He had triggered rescue, but he had also touched a machine hungry for secrets. In the weeks that followed, Mia's casework expanded. Warrants produced more Corvus shipments, more items, and an unexpected cache at a Riverside storage locker that tied the ring to several old missing persons files. Forensics matched fibers from Tamika's sweater to material in the Corvus boxes. And a trafficked phone recovered in the operation pinged locations near the stretch of road where the hit-and-run that killed her had occurred. Things that had been whispers on the street now had state numbers and labels. The city's cold case desk reopened, and journalists started asking more persistent questions. One night, months after Darren found the note, he joined a small vigil with Tamika's family. They left the bracelet he carried on a buoy chained to Pier 12 and lit candles that trembled in the wind. As he set his lighter down, a cool breath brushed his cheek, an almost imperceptible breeze that smelled faintly like jasmine and rain. A white feather drifted from nowhere and landed on the wrapped bracelet. The crowd around him murmured, and someone crossed themselves. Darren felt a quiet, insistent release closure, small and inadequate, but there were victories beyond the pier. Some couriers accepted plea deals. Several buyers were compelled to return property. Mia's team kept pressing up the chain, issuing subpoenas and seizing accounts. Yet Luca remained a shadow in the papers, an occasional mention, a subpoena served late, a legal team that sponsored non-disclosure agreements. The city closed some doors and opened others. Darren's name remained on a few witness lists, his presence a recurring tension at hearings. The last time Darren opened his rideshare app, months after the raids, a new no-contact booking pulsed on his screen. The pickup showed an offshore node for payment. The destination was a country he couldn't pronounce. The app's route line crawled across the map like a thin fingertip. He felt the old knot in his chest, equally a warning and a dare. He thought of Tamika and the small, stubborn quiet of the pier, of the note folded in his jacket that had started it all. He could delete the app, could stop driving altogether, buy fewer groceries, choose silence. But he also knew the work had meaning. Small truths could ripple into light. We swiped the booking aside and opened the phone's contacts. We did not accept the job. Instead, he called Mia, and they scheduled to meet over paperwork this time, not candles. Laughed softly when she heard Darren's voice. "We'll keep digging," she said. They adapt. So will we. Outside, a gust lifted a plastic bag and carried it down the street. Darren watched it bob along, lonely and aimless, until a breeze finally blew it into a drain. He imagined Tamika, or whatever had driven that folded paper into his hands, finally easing. Whatever hunted behind no-contact deliveries might continue to find routes and loopholes. But the note, the key, the bracelet, and the ledger had done something. They gave a name back to a person who'd been erased. Darren folded his hands and let the vigil's candlelight catch his knuckles. Justice had not ended. It had started.